Welcome to the Ego versus EQ and You podcast, where we discuss the key aspects of emotional intelligence and ways to apply it in everyday living. Now let's work together to make common sense more common. Thanks for listening. I'm Jen Shirkani, and I am happy to have a co-host with me in studio today, Steve Friedlein. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure to have you.
Likewise.
We started a series a few episodes ago called the Versus series, where we take two components or skills and match them up against each other and have a discussion about it. So I thought we'd continue our Versus series today. And the topic today is one actually I get asked about a lot. I think you do too.
Okay.
Related to authenticity versus EQ.
Yes. Oh, that is a very familiar subject.
Right?
It's always interesting because, especially when we talk about that authenticity piece,
Yeah.
and people wanting to be themselves and be accepted for who they are. And we certainly agree that that's an important piece. Mm-hmm. But how does that tie into the whole concept of EQ? Can I seek some adaptations and still be authentic to myself?
Exactly. Because if I'm going to adapt to my audience, ideally, if I'm recognizing, reading, and responding, I am uniquely approaching different people differently based on them and the situation I'm in. So how do I do that and not come across as fake or not genuine?
Right.
Right?
Exactly. I think Yes. I think the most important thing is it's a temporary adjustment. Okay. I'm not changing myself completely in order to work more effectively with you. But if you think about it, we do it all the time. If I'm talking to a 10-year-old child, I'm going to speak differently than if I'm talking to a colleague at work. If I'm speaking with my manager, I might address certain subject matter in a different way than I do if I'm talking with a peer. And so we make those adaptations without thinking about them.
True.
And it doesn't mean that we're not being true to ourselves or authentic. It simply means that we're conscious of our audience and the distinction of what they might be looking for from us at the time.
But how does it not come across looking like a chameleon then?
I'm not sure being a chameleon's all that bad. Okay.
I do say that like it's a bad thing.
No. But I think from the standpoint that those adjustments, if they're subtle and within the realm of who we really are, if I don't have to give up what's important to me, who I am, if I'm not conforming simply to agree, I'm making minor adjustments to have a greater level of connectivity with you. So we do know those people that are chameleon-like, and it's like they're just going to filter into everything that happens, and it doesn't really feel sincere.
Right.
And I think maybe that's another word we need to throw into the mix here, is that I need to be authentic, but I also need to be sincere in terms of what I'm saying so that it's received by someone as being real. Yeah.
I would agree, because I think that's where you run into trouble, is if, like, for example, I have a couple of coaching clients over the years. I've had clients where I've said, empathy, of course, part of the EQ skill set, something we need to demonstrate as leaders.
Right.
And I've, had an open enough coaching relationship with some of them. They've said to me, I don't care. Yeah. I really deep down don't care, right? I don't care if this person has issues at home. I am paying them to do a job. I need that job done. Right. And I just can't feel the concern that you want me to feel.
Right.
Can this person show empathy even if they don't feel empathy?
Well, we expect boundaries from others.
Right.
But we also need to be conscious of, are we conscious of the boundaries that other people expect from us? And maybe that's where the chameleon part comes in a little bit, is that I need to be respectful of your needs, and I also need to be conscious of how I'm communicating my message.
Yeah, I know. It's a two-sided dynamic.
Agreed.
And so what we've had to kind of do for somebody who doesn't feel empathy, they can still show empathy by asking a question. Right. How are you?
Yes.
Maybe not spend 10 minutes on the answer, but at least show with behavior
And I think going back to the very basics of empathy, it's not about agreeing with everything you say.
Yeah, you're right.
I can understand what you're saying and I can want to learn more, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I totally agree with everything that you're experiencing or
Right.
the emotion that you might be experiencing.
Right. And if I'm adapting my approach, let's say I'm somebody who is very quiet and reserved, but I'm in a room with a bunch of colleagues that are much more outgoing and outspoken, I can get out of my comfort zone and raise some of my assertiveness in that setting to be heard and contribute without surrendering any of my values.
Yes.
Right? So even though I'm adapting my behavior, which isn't natural to me, I'm still being authentic in what I'm communicating.
Right.
It's just the way I'm doing it might be a little different for the circumstances.
Right.
Doesn't,
Yeah, exactly. Right? Another thing that I have heard in certain situations is people don't want to be vulnerable because they don't want to expose their faults or their inabilities.
Oh, yeah. So hiding authenticity, actually.
Yes.
Because I don't want you to see any weaknesses in me.
Exactly. Well, and I think coming to the conclusion that's very obvious that we all have things that we can improve upon. And I think sometimes a willingness to share some of that vulnerability helps us bond more effectively with other people. So it actually, I think, has the adverse effect of what people fear. It has a positive...
The opposite.
Yes.
It does the opposite.
I believe so.
Yeah, that reminds me of this great quote from Brene Brown. And she says, vulnerability is the last thing I want you to see in me, but it's the first thing I'm going to look for in you.
Oh, my goodness. Yes.
And so we perceive it as it's showing my weaknesses.
Right.
To expose these things that I'm not proud of. But actually, it's the thing that makes us the most relatable. I had a client one time who... I don't want to say he was obsessed with image, but he was very image conscious. Yeah. Let's say that. He was a senior leader at this company. And so he had everything very buttoned up all the time. He just never made a mistake, it seemed like. And that made him a bit unrelatable, admittedly. And I was coaching him and I was on site with him one day and he was doing an all hands meeting with his whole team. We were in a conference room a big conference room. There was probably 25 people in there. And he's kind of up in front. He's got his PowerPoint up, and he's going through a deck of company statistics and business updates, kind of overview of what was going on. And he just finally stopped a couple minutes into it, and he just stood there and looked at everybody. And we all kind of, sat back wondering what's going on. And he says, here's the deal. I left my notes at home on the bathroom sink next to my watch and my phone. And so I don't know where I'm at on this. I don't have my note. I don't know. I'm lost at this point. And I think he thought, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing, but I have nothing. I have to call myself out here and admit this. And the room clapped. Like they applauded.
Yes.
And afterward he said, I was so embarrassed. I said, are you kidding me? You're finally relatable. You just finally did something that we've all done, and now people can actually see you as a human being.
Vulnerability makes us more relatable.
Yeah.
Based on what you just said, that's a great example. I think of other situations where I've seen people presenting and some minor little glitch takes place that was unexpected, and it helps the audience connect. I've seen that happen on more than one occasion. And it's like, you're human.
Yes.
I can relate a little more to what you were saying because I've seen a different side of you now that you didn't want me to see.
Right.
That there was a fear of exposing, and yet it brought about what I thought was a positive outcome.
Yeah. It's a struggle. It is, because we do want to always put our perfect self out there, right? But
Exactly.
All right.
I feel like, as with so much of what we talk about, the opportunity is there every day to show a little bit of that vulnerability, whether it's on the phone or we have so many different ways of communicating now. And I think it can feel like there's such a distance because sometimes we're in another room, sometimes we're in another state, sometimes we're in another country.
Yeah.
And yet to be able to find ways to allow people to see aspects of who we are by sharing a little bit more of that vulnerability can really help connections, especially when we're not in the same room with that person. So I think that's another piece of why it's important.
Yeah, and I think one hack, if you will, for showing authenticity or vulnerability is emotional expression.
Yes.
And that is the willingness to say, I'm feeling nervous about this right now, or I'm feeling insecure about things in our relationship, or I am not sure if we're on the right path here with this decision.
Yes.
And the willingness to kind of open up and share
Yes.
the feeling that you're having is one way to kind of...
Right. And the interesting thing is, even if we don't share it outwardly, people are going to see it. That discomfort, that, okay, if I'm not expressing it outwardly, what emotion I'm feeling, there's going to be that sense of something's not quite right here. Are you okay?
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's another piece of vulnerability that's really significant in helping us bond.
Yeah, I would agree. We need a balance of both,
Yep.
authenticity and
Yep.
emotional intelligence. Too much authenticity without the EQ, not great.
Yep.
I think of Steve Jobs, right?
Yes.
As the example of
I believe emotional intelligence can help us find ways to be more vulnerable that are more acceptable to us when we look at it in terms of emotional expression.
Yeah.
How flexible do I want to be in this situation? Just different aspects of what we've learned about emotional intelligence that can help us be more comfortable being ourselves.
So in a nutshell, EQ is what helps you take authenticity and make it appropriate.
Agreed.
Appropriate authenticity.
Agreed.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Works for me.
Yeah, all right. I'll
try to be more authentic.
endorse that. Okay, yeah, please do. Okay, well, thank you for listening today to our episode on authenticity and EQ. Until next time. Thanks for joining us today on the Ego versus EQ and You podcast. If you liked this episode, be sure to follow us or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please share our show with others. For questions or future topic suggestions, please email us at podcast@jenshirkani.com. Until next time, keep using your EQ and show ego who's boss.